Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Mark Galvin with us. He's president and CEO at Talon. We're going to talk about innovation in healthcare today. Mark has founded so many startups, including Cedar Point Communications, that was number 2 on Inc. 500 list during his tenure. He attended McGill, which is why I reached out to him, amazing university, and has got just a trove of experience, which we're going to talk about today. This pod is presented to you by podfire.com. If you want to start or scale your own podcast and monetize on that, you can go to podfire.com. Mark, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and about what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. I appreciate you having me. So I've been working on, kind of always fixing things that I like to get fixed. And most recently, I co-founded this company, Talon, and it's really, honestly, underneath it, the hood is a big data analytics company. But the specific problem that we're solving here, which is a really big one here in the United States, is that consumers have been denied all the normal information that consumers are typically entitled to in a free market when it comes to our healthcare markets here. So the big frustration for me was I put my employees on company number 4. We moved to a consumer-directed health plan design. That basically means that the company provided, cash money to the employees to go into something called a health savings account, an account that they get to keep the balance of if they don't spend it. And then kind of a catastrophic health insurance on the backside of that. And it turned us all into consumers of healthcare in the United States, which is very, very odd because most health plan designs have been set up to deliberately remove consumer optics from them, and patients and employees and employers who are all paying the bills here in the US have been denied knowledge of what the actual costs are, what the prices are, until after you've had a procedure and then are expected to pay for it or end up being sent into collections. So I had the opportunity in 2014 as a guy who'd started a number of high growth startups and ran a couple of tech accelerators. Within the second tech accelerator that I started, called the New England Innovation Center, we founded this company, Talon, and it's been a great run. Fabulous team here. My co-founder, dual degreed computer science, bachelor's and master's. Myself, I went to McGill, but unfortunately flunked the differential equations course in the final semester. But I was already gainfully employed, so I never went back. So I actually never got my degree from McGill, but I spent better part of 5 years there. Met my wife, who I've now had for 41 years. We've had 5 kids together. So, there's a good McGill hook in there that I know that's how you found me originally. But it's been a great run, and we got some fabulous tailwinds that when the federal government saw what we had done, they basically mandated that 212 million members of commercial health plans in the United States must be provided with a consumer shopping experience that mimics everything we showed them. So as a result of that, we've been growing like a weed. We grew like over 400% the year prior, and this past year we grew about another 125%, and we're expecting to have multiple hundreds of percent growth this year. So it's been a great run so far.
Right. Tell me about your first exit at PRI. How did that boosted your ego and your bank account?
Yeah, well, the interesting part is that company started in the basement of my house in 1989. I basically got kicked out when my wife was sick of the UPS driver, the FedEx driver, and the growing employees walking between the television and the couch while she was feeding our newborn baby to get down to the basement. And we moved out and grew that company, and in took about 2 years of cranking along to actually eventually get some venture capitalists to agree to help fund us. And that was even though we had really good revenue and good customer base. But I was a software engineer. My co-founder was a hardware engineer. Nobody had ever been in sales or marketing or CEO. So we were learning from the school of hard knocks. Finally managed to get two really great venture capitalists to co-fund us. A guy who I'm still very close with by the name of Ofer Numerovsky, who had an illustrious career at Hancock Venture Partners, which was renamed HarborVest, and Frank Planestra, who was with Pioneer Capital and Ascend. Basically, 1995, we got approached by a West Coast company to acquire us. They actually approached us to, kind of partner initially, but quickly fessed up that they thought that they wanted to combine forces and become one company. So I think it was June of 1995, so about roughly 6 years, a little less than 6 years after we'd started, about 5.5 years after we'd started the company, we ended up merging with a company called Zircom out on the West Coast. That was a $52 million outcome on probably about maybe $3 million of invested dollars and a bunch of sweat equity. And that was my opportunity to go from the mortgage company calling the director of software and saying, when's Mark's going to get his mortgage payment in, to having the wherewithal to buy a beach house on Martha's Vineyard and a nice house up in Canada for visiting, and a nice airplane for flying back and forth between them, and many other toys and great fun things. So it was a great outcome. The big difference, the beauty of it was, the school of hard knocks worked and it was a success. And I quickly was called by Mike Zach, who was at Charles River Ventures in Boston at the time, and he asked if I would join Charles River as a entrepreneur in residence. And so I did that. And this was back in 95, late 95, back when it wasn't that easy to get your computer connected to the internet, not like today. So, I was casually going into downtown Boston, Post Office Square, into the Charles River Ventures offices. Didn't really have any responsibility except to look at a few deals for them. And in return, I got a really fancy office and access to administrative assistants and all their research reporting information. But by the time I managed to get my internet connection working to my Mac at the time, we had already decided to start a new company, and we launched that in January 96. So only about 3 months after walking into the doors at Charles River Ventures. And sure enough, Ascent, or Pioneer Capital, and Charles River Ventures co-funded that company, along with a bunch of kind of individual folks that had been successul in cashing out of my first company. So in one day, instead of 2 years to raise the money, it was a morning meeting, a lunch meeting, and an afternoon meeting, and I was oversubscribed by about 2x for what we were looking for capital. So that's the difference between having done it, been there, done that, and not. So, and then that company was a very rapid growth success also, and we ended up getting acquired by a company called XL Switching. We merged up with them, and then immediately they got acquired, partially because of the integration of our two products by Lucent. And I was probably the second largest shareholder in XL Switching that had acquired us, and then Lucent acquired us, the whole thing. So our investors saw good outcome from the first acquisition, and then a quick doubling from the second nested acquisition, which occurred about like 90 to 120 days later. And then I couldn't survive as a manager in a company of 140,000 employees. That was definitely not my gig. So that came to an end.
Right. And the .com bust at the same time, and that's where Cedar Point Communications came to life.
Yeah, so you're right. So .com bust for one reason or another, just because I refused to not be starting and running new companies. I teamed up with a guy who was at Lucent, who I met at Lucent after Excel got acquired by Lucent. Quite honestly, he badgered me into starting another company to some extent. He had been with Lucent for his entire career, Lucent and AT&T. And so said, yeah, okay, well, he started parading all types of people back and forth in front of me. Hey, we should start a company with this guy and that guy. And we started collaborating and finally decided to build the end all be all multimedia switching system for cable operators. So basically for cable multi-system operators, as they called them, MSOs at the time, to allow the cable operator not just to do video, but to also be able to do IP voice services on their network, and then eventually IP video on their networks. And so, we were taking on Goliath. Quite honestly, everybody wanted to be involved there. Cisco, was really kind of one of the leaders in pushing voice over IP. Nortel, Alcatel, Lucent, you name it, everybody wanted to be in that market. But this little company, Cedar Point Communications, for one reason or another, we managed to architect a platform that was really super appropriate and could be operated by the cable operators. And really that company was pretty critical to the ultimate deployment of voice over IP in the United States over the cable networks. And that was the company you mentioned earlier, Cedar Point Communications, which was number 2 on the Inc. 500 in 2007. Went from 0 to about 68 million in revenue over, I guess it would have been 6.5 years, 6+ years or so. So that was a pretty good run also. And then I went from that to starting Whaleback Systems, which was now taking the voice over IP, not just to the edge of the network, but all the way into the office environment. And so we built a premise-based voice over IP PBX pure play, and started deploying voice services to small and medium-sized businesses on that. We grew that from 0 to 5 million in roughly 3.5 years. So that was that actually never got put up for the Inc. 500, but it would that year it would have I think it was 2000 and would have been 2008. I think it would have been the number 1 on the Inc. 500 if we put the numbers in for the contest. So anyways, it was very rapid growth. There's some trickery in those numbers. The growth numbers are obviously, if you start small and get big, the multiplier is bigger, and that's what they measure. So.
And what was your secret spice to grow these companies so fast?
Probably a little bit of tenacity. So, filling a void. I would say one thing that makes it easier to grow companies is if you have an existing large market. There is a existing large market, and your innovation is to, do something that makes it better, faster, cheaper. Something along those lines. And so you're redirecting an existing market into a slightly new way of doing it based on your innovations, and that there's enough differentiation in that innovation to give a good reason for people to switch. And so that's how you can grow a company very rapidly. You don't have to invent a new market. That's very difficult to do, but an existing market and then just creating a shift in an existing market. So, what we're doing today really is the big shift, and it's a massive one, is we're in the middle of helping the entire U.S. healthcare system move from total opacity in pricing to total transparency in pricing. And every nook and corner of the US healthcare system is broken in some way because it never had a watchful consumer, a watchful, engaged consumer in the market. And now, as we enable consumers, and there's many companies around us helping with this now, and the federal mandates are a big push also to help push it back into kind of more of a consumer free market mode. As that happens more and more, all types of areas of the healthcare space in the United States are being exposed for needing, more information, more symmetry in information, more consideration of the consumer and what the consumer wants. I kind of point to when I got out of college in like 1983. My study at McGill was math and computer science, and everybody wanted to tap me to help them figure out what components they needed for their IBM PC to operate properly. And so it required expertise in computers and software and hardware and stuff like that to for consumers to be able to, access and use these new things called personal computers, and, the Lisas and Macs that were coming around, starting to show up. And I would say Steve Jobs did a pretty good job with the Mac and an integration there. But the IBM PC was always, piece parted together until Michael Dell, I think, entered the market. And what he did is he said, okay, we're going to make computers for the average consumer. We're going to make them purchasable, make sure that people can, understand enough in the bundling of computer components that they don't have to worry about this thing. Just go online, place an order, and expect it to show up and work. And that's something that hasn't happened yet in healthcare, because the consumers weren't demanding it, but now consumers are starting to demand it. So we should see things get a lot simpler. We should see billing practices become simpler and more consistent, more understandable, you name it. And with all these changes, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for new companies to get involved.
What's your plan with that one after so many successful exits? Is it more social purpose, or are you also aiming for a great exit on that one too?
Yeah, well, there are a lot of people that have really been pouring their hearts into this. It's really mission oriented to a great extent, but we have a mix of people that have been around the block a few times that know how to do startups, and we've got a bunch of new graduates, new people that are just starting, seriously getting starting their lives. As a matter of fact, in a fairly small company, we've got a few marriages, a bunch of pregnancies, all types of early on life types of things. And so in terms of liquidity, we definitely are fully aligned here. All the employees are aligned on equity participation. Everybody has a piece of the action and ownership in the company. And, I certainly want to see all these younger folks that are pouring their hearts out in the mission. I want to see them see a great financial outcome on the equity that they have in the company. Many people have sacrificed from time to time to make sure that we could do what we needed to do and deliver products to great products to customers, make sure things that are very complicated to build and to get working right, that people are spending the time necessary to get that done. So we want liquidity, and we've already had some liquidity, honestly. We've had some early employees that had the opportunity to sell some shares to new investors and made them some good money. But the idea here is to just continue to fix big problems in healthcare And, we have a lot of intellectual property, a lot of services and technology, and now a tremendous amount of data assets that we've built up, that we want to apply and provide all over the place, all throughout the market, to those who are willing to help move it to be more of a efficient marketplace, lower costs for people, improve payment to doctors, quite honestly, reduce gouging at facility levels, and just drive an efficiency where providers and facilities that know how to run good businesses are rewarded with more customers. They're doing better work for consumers, and the ones that are gouging or not doing a great job, hopefully they just kind of die off and allow the new suppliers and the new medical facilities to grow up in the sunlight, and just really help the U.S. Healthcare marketplace. It's very, very expensive. We're going from over $4 trillion. There are projections that a few years out will be $6-8 trillion in healthcare expenses in the U.S. And there's no need for that. It's not that outcomes are any better than they were last year or the year before. In fact, they're a little bit worse than they've been. And the problem is just too many people with their hands out in the lack of efficiency and oversight in the market, which normally comes from knowledgeable consumers. So we're a big part of helping bring them back in with symmetric information.
That's quite exciting. Mark, can you tell us also where to find out more information about you and the company?
Yeah, sure. You can go to www.talonhealthtech.com, TALON healthtech.com.